It was past midnight when Daniel returned to his grand mansion. The rain was falling outside, and the night was silent. His black car stopped at the gate, and the driver stepped out to open the door. Daniel, dressed in a sharp black suit, stepped out with a tired face. His eyes looked cold, like he didn't feel anything. The party had been boring. Businessmen, fake smiles, and empty conversations. He hated it. For Daniel, everything in life had become the same: business, money, and silence. As he walked into the house, the lights were dim. The staff had gone to bed, except for one person. Sophia, the young maid, was kneeling on the floor, scrubbing a coffee stain from the carpet. Her hair was tied in a bun, and her hands were red from cleaning all day. She didn't notice him at first. Daniel stood at the entrance for a moment, watching her. The room was quiet except for the sound of her scrubbing. "You're still working?" he asked, his voice deep. Sophia looked up, startled. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't hear you come in." "You should be sleeping," he said, removing his coat. "I wanted to finish this stain." "I'll leave soon," she replied softly. Daniel didn't reply. He walked to the bar and poured himself a glass of whiskey. He sat on the sofa and looked at her again. "Why are you even working here?" he asked suddenly. Sophia paused. "Because I need the job." He raised an eyebrow. "There are easier jobs." She looked down. "Not for people like me." For a moment, Daniel didn't say anything. He watched her quietly. There was something about her. Her eyes looked sad, her voice calm, but heavy. "Do you always clean this slate?" he asked. "Only when something spills," she replied with a small smile. He noticed her hands shaking slightly. "When did you last eat?" Sophia looked away. "A while ago." "I'm fine." He stood up and walked to the kitchen. After a few minutes, he returned with a sandwich and placed it on the table near her. "Eat this," he said. Sophia looked surprised. "Sir, you don't have to. I didn't ask what I have to do. I said eat," he said firmly. She nodded slowly and took the sandwich with both hands. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. She ate quietly. Daniel sat back down and sipped his drink. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Are you happy?" Sophia looked up. "What, are you happy with your life?" he asked again, more softly this time. Sophia looked down at her lap. "I don't know. I survive. That's enough." Daniel leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "You know, people think money solves everything, but they're wrong. Sometimes, I feel emptier than ever." Sophia didn't know what to say. She had never seen this side of him. The powerful, rich man was now speaking like a lonely soul. That night, something changed. Their conversation grew deeper. They talked about childhood, loneliness, dreams, and pain. Time passed without them knowing. They laughed once, just once, but that laugh was real. Then silence filled the room. Sophia stood up. "I should go now. It's very late." Daniel stood up too. "Wait." They looked at each other. The space between them felt strange, heavy, emotional, and then, in a moment of confusion, weakness, and loneliness, one they would both remember forever, something happened. A mistake, a night that neither of them had planned. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a headache. The sunlight peeked through the curtains. The room was silent. He sat up and looked around. Sophia was gone. He walked through the hall. No sign of her. He asked a servant, "Where's the maid, Sophia?" "She left early, sir. She said she wasn't feeling well," the servant replied. Daniel frowned, but said nothing. He didn't think about it again. He was used to people leaving. He had no time for emotions. That night, he told himself it meant nothing. Days passed, then weeks, then years. He never saw her again. Until one day, when he walked through the streets of the city and saw her sitting on the sidewalk, holding hands with two little children who looked just like him. It was a cold morning when Daniel decided to take a walk through the city. The media was chasing him against some new scandal, some new headline. His driver offered to take him somewhere quiet, but Daniel refused. He wanted to walk alone. No cameras, no noise, just silence. The streets were full of people. Some were shopping, others rushing to work. Daniel kept his head low and wore dark glasses. As he walked past a narrow street near an old market, he saw something that made him stop. A woman was sitting on the ground near a shop wall. Her clothes were torn, and her hair was messy. She looked tired, broken. Two small children sat beside her, a boy and a girl, twins. They were hugging each other tightly to stay warm. Daniel turned to walk away, but then, he heard something. The little boy said, "Mommy, Sophia, I'm hungry." Daniel froze. His heart dropped. Sophia. He turned back slowly, and looked again. The woman bent her head down, holding her children close. It was her Sophia. His mind went blank. What was she doing here? Why was she begging on the street? And those kids? They looked to be about 5 years old. The same age that matched that one night. Daniel stood there, hidden behind a wall. He watched them. The girl had soft brown hair, like Sophia, but the boy had Daniel's eyes, sharp, gray, and serious. He looked like a mirror of Daniel's own childhood. Daniel's hands began to shake slightly. So many questions rushed through his mind. Why didn't she tell him? Were those his children? Why was she living like this? He took a step forward, but stopped. What would he say? How would she react? Would she run away again? Just then, A man passed by and dropped a few coins near Sophia. She gave a weak smile and whispered, "Thank you." The boy looked up and asked her, "Mom, where's our house?" "We don't have a house, baby. But I'll find something soon," she said gently, her voice trembling. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years, real pain. It hit him like a wave. He had everything: money, cars, power, but standing in front of him was a woman he had once forgotten, and 2 children who might be his. He wanted to go to them, but he couldn't. Not yet. He slowly took out his phone and took a photo of the 3 of them, not to share, not for proof, just to remember what he had lost. He stood there for a few more minutes, hidden in the shadows, watching, thinking, regretting. Then he turned around and walked away. But this time, he wasn't going to forget. This time, he was going to find answers. This time, he would come back. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. The image of Sophia and the twins sitting on the street haunted his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her tired face. And the boy's eyes, his eyes. Questions filled his head. Were they really his children? Why did she leave without telling him? Why was she suffering like this? The next morning, he returned to the same street. He wore a simple hoodie and sunglasses to stay hidden. He stood near a tea stall, pretending to read a newspaper, but his eyes searched every corner. They were gone. He asked the shopkeeper nearby, "Do you know the woman who sits here with 2 kids?" The man looked at him and said, "Ah yes, she comes often. Quiet woman. She usually sits there in the mornings. I think she sleeps in that abandoned building across the street." Daniel's heart sank. Sophia living in a broken building, with children. He waited all day, and then, just before sunset, he saw them. Sophia walked slowly down the street, holding both kids by the hand. She looked tired, and her steps were weak. The children looked hungry. The boy held an empty biscuit packet. Daniel quietly followed them. He stayed behind, keeping a safe distance. He didn't want to scare her. She entered the old building at the corner. The windows were broken, and the roof was half open. Inside, she laid a thin blanket on the dusty floor. She gave each child half a piece of bread and smiled weakly. "This, my loves," she said softly. "Tomorrow will be better." The children ate silently. Daniel stood outside the window, hidden by the shadows. His fists were clenched. How did this happen? How did the woman who once worked in his mansion end up like this? And then the boy looked up and asked, "Mama, do we have a daddy?" Sophia paused. She looked at her children and smiled faintly. "You do, sweetheart. But he doesn't know about you. He was someone I once knew. Will he ever come to see us?" the girl asked, her voice small. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. She turned her face away and whispered, "I don't know. Maybe one day." Daniel stepped back from the window, his heart pounding. He had heard enough. The truth was in front of him now. They were his children. There was no doubt. He felt it in his bones. And now, he couldn't walk away. Not this time. But he also couldn't just walk in and say, "I'm your father." He had hurt her once. He had left her without even knowing it. Now, he had to make it right. But how? He walked back to his car, still shaking. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't thinking about business, power, or money. He was thinking about a woman he left behind, and 2 children he had just found. The next morning, Daniel stood in front of the same old building, his heart beating fast. He had spent the whole night thinking. He was a billionaire, powerful and respected. People feared him. But right now, he felt nervous, scared, just like a little boy about to knock on a door he never thought he'd return to. He had brought food, clothes, and blankets. But none of those things mattered more than what he was about to do: face the woman he had once forgotten. He walked slowly up the broken stairs, holding the bags in one hand. The sun had just started rising. He saw Sophia inside, sitting against the wall. Her eyes were closed, and the twins were sleeping on her lap. She looked thinner than before, worried, exhausted. He took a deep breath and gently stepped inside. Her eyes opened instantly. She froze. For a second, she thought it was a dream. But when she saw him standing there, holding the bags, her face turned pale. Her arms wrapped around the kids protectively. "What are you doing here?" she asked in a shaky voice. Daniel looked at her, trying to stay calm. "I saw you yesterday, on the street. I didn't know. I didn't know you were living like this. You shouldn't be here," she said quickly, her voice rising. "Please go. Don't come near my children." Daniel stepped back slightly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I need to talk." "There's nothing to say," she snapped. "There is," he said softly, placing the bags near the wall. "I know they're mine, Sophia." I saw the boy's eyes. "He looks like me." Tears began to build in her eyes. "I tried to forget you," she said. "I tried to survive. That night, it meant nothing to you. But to me, it changed everything." Daniel looked down, ashamed. "I didn't know you were pregnant. I didn't even know you were gone until weeks later. I thought you left." "I was fired," she said sharply. "The morning after that night, the manager told me to leave. No explanation, no warning. I begged for help, but no one listened, and I didn't have the courage to fight." Daniel's eyes widened. "You were fired." "I didn't do that." "Then someone else did it for you," she said bitterly. "And I had to survive on my own. I was alone, pregnant, and homeless." He sat down slowly, not too close. I had no idea, Sophia. If I had known, I would have never let this happen. She held her children tighter. They don't know who you are. They don't even know your name. I've protected them from your world. Daniel's voice cracked. I don't want to take them away. I just want to help. I want to be part of their life, if you'll let me. Sophia looked away, wiping her tears. Her voice was softer now. Why now, Daniel? After all these years? He paused. Because I saw you, and I saw them, and something inside me woke up. I have lived an empty life, but when I saw my son's eyes, I felt something real. Silence filled the room. The twins were still asleep, their tiny hands holding each other. Sophia finally looked at him. They're all I have. I've fought for them every day. They're my whole world. Daniel nodded. Then let me help you fight. I'm not asking you to forgive me today. Just let me prove I'm not the same man you left behind. Sophia didn't answer. Her heart was torn. She didn't trust him, but she also didn't want her children to suffer anymore. She looked down at the sleeping twins, and for the first time, she whispered, maybe, just maybe, they deserve to know their father. The old building was quiet. The twins were still asleep, wrapped in a thin blanket, their soft breathing the only sound in the room. Sophia sat with her hands in her lap. Daniel sat across from her, waiting, patient but full of guilt. He had never felt like this before, not in any board meeting, not in any billion-dollar deal. This was different. This was real. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. I wanted to tell you so many times, she said in a low voice. When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared. I didn't have anyone, no family, no friends. I thought about going back to your mansion, but I knew they'd never let me in. Daniel listened carefully, she continued. I worked at small cafes. I cleaned houses. I even slept in train stations. When the twins were born, everything got harder. People didn't want to hire a woman with 2 babies. Why didn't you come to me? Daniel asked, his voice soft. She gave a sad smile. I didn't have your number. I had no way to reach you. And deep down, I thought you didn't care. Daniel looked down, ashamed. I never knew. If I had, I know, she said, stopping him. But that's not the only reason I didn't come. She took a deep breath and looked at the sleeping twins. My son, Ion. He's sick. Daniel looked up, surprised. What do you mean? He has a heart condition. The doctors said he needs surgery. It's expensive. I've been saving every coin, every rupee, but it's not enough. I went to charities, hospitals, even begged strangers. Tears ran down her cheeks now. They said he won't survive if he doesn't get help soon. Daniel felt like the ground had vanished beneath him. His son was sick, and he never even knew. He stood up and began pacing the room. Why didn't you go to the media? Or send a letter to my office? She looked at him sharply. Because I didn't want my children to grow up as a scandal. I didn't want them to be part of your world's gossip. I didn't want pity, I wanted peace. Daniel nodded slowly. He finally understood the weight she had been carrying. You protected them, even from me. She nodded. Yes, because I didn't know if you'd care. Daniel walked over to Ion and sat beside him. He gently touched the boy's tiny hand. I care, he whispered, and I'll fix this. I promise. I'll get him the best doctors. I'll make sure he gets the surgery. Sophia looked at him with tired eyes. Don't make promises if you can't keep them. I've seen enough people walk away. He looked into her eyes. I walked away once, not knowing what I lost. I thought, won't do it again. Just then, the twins began to wake up. Ion rubbed his eyes and looked at Daniel. Who are you, Mr. Daniel smiled. His heart felt heavy. I'm someone who wants to help. Sophia stood up and placed a hand on her son's head. He's a friend, she said gently. A good one. The girl Aisha looked up and said, do you have food? Daniel laughed softly and opened one of the bags. I brought pancakes, juice, and fruits. The twins smiled brightly and started eating with joy. It was the first time in weeks they had real food. Sophia watched quietly. Her heart was confused. Could she really trust him again? Could she give him a place in their lives? She didn't know yet. But one thing was clear now. Ion's life depended on Daniel, and maybe so did hers. Daniel couldn't wait anymore. That night, he called his private doctor and asked for a discreet DNA test. He didn't tell Sophia at first. He didn't want her to feel insulted. But deep inside, he needed confirmation. Not because he didn't believe her, but because the truth would change everything. The next morning, he returned to the building with a plan. He brought fresh clothes, warm jackets, and food for the children. Sophia looked surprised to see him again so early. I want to take you all somewhere today, Daniel said. Sophia hesitated. Where? There's a clinic. Safe and private. They can look at Ion's heart and run some tests. Let me help. She didn't answer right away, but when she saw Ion's weak face and tired eyes, she nodded. Only if I stay with them the whole time. Of course, Daniel replied. Always. At the clinic, the doctor welcomed them kindly. Ion sat quietly as the nurse examined him, and Sophia held his hand the entire time. Daniel stepped out to talk privately with the doctor. Please do a DNA test. For both children, quietly. The doctor nodded. We'll keep it confidential. While waiting, Daniel bought toys for the kids from the nearby shop. Ayan loved a toy airplane, and Aisha picked a soft pink teddy bear. They sat in the clinic's waiting area, eating muffins Daniel had brought. He watched them closely. Ayan laughed for the first time when Daniel made a silly airplane noise. Aisha smiled brightly when Daniel called her princess. Sophia watched all this quietly, her heart full of emotions she didn't know how to name. A father's feeling. Daniel felt something he had never felt before. Love, fear, hope. He looked at Ayan's smile and thought, if I lose him, I'll never forgive myself. He looked at Sophia and thought, she's stronger than anyone I know. The results by evening. The doctor called Daniel into his office. They're your children, the doctor said with a soft smile. No doubt at all. Daniel closed his eyes. His throat tightened. Thank you, he whispered. When he stepped outside, Sophia was sitting with the twins. She looked up at him. Daniel walked over, knelt down, and looked at Ayan and Aisha. I want to tell you something, he said gently. The kids looked at him with curious eyes. I'm your father. Sophia's eyes widened. The children didn't understand at first. I'm the man who's going to be here for you from now on, he said again, slowly, to protect you, to make you laugh, to take you home. Ayan looked at his mother. Is it true? Sophia nodded slowly, her eyes full of tears. Yes, he's your dad. Aisha smiled. Do we have a house now? Daniel's heart broke. Yes, princess, he said, smiling through the pain. You have a home now, a big one, with warm beds and lots of food, and I'll never let you go again. Sophia looked away, wiping her tears silently. That night Daniel took them to a nearby hotel. Not the fancy kind but clean, quiet, and warm. The twins ran around the room, excited. Sophia stood near the window. Quiet. Thank you, she said softly. Daniel looked at her. Don't thank me. I failed you once. I won't fail again. Sophia turned to him. This doesn't mean I trust you. Not fully, I understand, he said, but I'll earn it, one day at a time. A week passed. Ayan was admitted to one of the best hospitals in the city, and the surgery was scheduled. Daniel stayed with him every day, sometimes working from the hospital room, sometimes reading stories to Ayan until he fell asleep. Had never been this close to anyone before. Sophia, on the other hand, stayed quiet. She helped the nurses. She kept the kids calm, but she kept her distance from Daniel. Something inside her still wasn't ready to forgive. Then one morning, Daniel arrived at the hospital and Sophia was gone. The nurse said she left early. She packed her things and said she wouldn't be coming back. Daniel's heart stopped. He ran to the hotel room where they had been staying empty. He called every contact, checked the streets, drove through the markets. No sign of Sophia. Panic hit him, not because she left, but because she left without saying goodbye. He was losing her again. The letter. When Daniel returned to the hospital, the nurse handed him an envelope. It was from Sophia. He opened it with shaking hands. Daniel, I never wanted to leave without telling you, but I had to. You've done more in 1 week than anyone ever has in my whole life. You saved our son, you gave us warmth, safety, and food. But I don't want our children to grow up in the spotlight, in your world of cameras and news headlines. I want them to be happy, not famous. I'm not running, I'm just giving you space to think if you really want this. If you do, you'll find us. We'll be waiting. Sophia. Daniel held the letter tightly. His mind was full of everything. She had said everything he had done wrong, and everything he still had time to make right. The search for days. He searched, he asked around small neighborhoods. He visited schools, clinics, even charity kitchens. And finally, he found her. She was working at a small cafe on the edge of the city, wearing a blue apron, serving tea and smiling at the customers. Ayan and Aisha were sitting at a table nearby, drawing with crayons. Daniel stood at the door, watching. His heart felt heavy, but also full. He walked in slowly. Sophia saw him and froze. I told you I'd come back, he said quietly. She looked down, nervous. This isn't your world, Daniel. I don't care, he said. I don't want a world without them, without you. She wiped her hands and stepped closer. Are you sure? Daniel took a deep breath. I was born into money, but for the first time in my life, I know what it means to feel rich. And it's not because of the cars or houses. He looked at Ayan and Aisha. It's because of them. Because of you. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to marry you because of guilt, he added softly. I want to build a life with you because you're the only real thing I've ever known. Sophia didn't reply. Instead, she reached out and held his hand. The children ran to them and hugged their legs. A new family, a new beginning. No lies, no running, no shame, just love and a second chance.